Okay. Anybody reading translation and purport?
O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today? Though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us. Now, when all kings are at enmity with us, the Pandavas are most fortunate because, with all good luck, they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relations with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. The material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of the nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of the nature, beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven, down to the present age. They are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power. But the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor and at the same time depend completely on the Lord. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of this standard of civilization. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Shri Krishna, but they were not idle parasites of the Lord. They were all highly qualified, both by personal character and by physical activities. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by the constitutional position. The perfection of life is therefore to become dependent on the will of the Lord instead of becoming falsely independent in the material world. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called anatha,
Anna.
anath, or without any guardian. Whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called sanath, or those having someone to protect them. Therefore, we must try to be sanath so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable conditions of the material existence. By the deluding power of the external material nature, we forget that the material condition of the life is most undesirable perplexity. The Bhagavad Gita therefore directs us in 7.19 that after many, many births, one fortunate person becomes aware of the fact that is Vasudev is all in all, Vasudeva is all in all, and that the best way of leading one's life is to surrender unto him completely. This is a sign of Mahatma. All the members of Pandava family were Mahatmas in household life. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the head of these Mahatmas, and Queen Kunti Devi was the mother. The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavad Puran, are therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandavas Mahatmas. For them, separation from the Lord was just like the separation of a fish from water. Srimati Kunti Devi therefore felt that such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the queen is to try and persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who were put into the condition of enmity, but all of us are always in such a condition, and the best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord and thereby overcome all different difficulties of material existence.
Jay. Thank you, Prabhuji. It was a bit long, right? Thank you so much. So we can understand here that Prabhupada is stressing on the aspect of dependence on the Lord. Right? So we saw the other day, we spoke about dependence to a good extent. So I will not repeat that here, but just at a conclusion level. So there is one verse in Ishopanishad. So do you all remember that? So in Ishopanishad, so the first mantra, no, the second one, I think. Yeah. So this one, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita ma grida kasya svidhanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. So the key point here is the Lord is the owner. Now, the Lord being the owner, uh, whatever we consume is also owned by him. Now, if he wishes, he will give it. If he doesn't wish, he will not give. And it is not just food or rain or clothing or shelter, but it is anything and everything. He is the supreme controller. So, what should come to us, what should not come to us, depending on our karma, depending on our desires, depending on His mercy, all finally depends on His wish, whether they should come or they should not come. So, how much ever struggle we do, it is not necessary that that struggle will help us obtain something. The ultimate decision making authority, whether that should come to us or not come to us, is his wish. And that is why a devotee depends on the Lord. A devotee doesn't depend on his efforts. But that doesn't mean the devotee doesn't take effort itself. He will not just sit in one corner of a room and say, "Oh Lord, you exist. I know I'm dependent on you. If you want me to eat, give me food. Otherwise, I will not eat." So that's not how it works. The devotee continues to perform his work, whatever it is. But he does not strive to the extreme extent of obtaining something material which he knows is possible to be received by him only by the mercy of the Lord. So just because I want food and I know Lord will provide, I cannot resign from my job and say, "Okay, Lord, you exist, give me food. I know you are there, I'm dependent on you." The Lord may still provide as well, but the point is that is not what is expected. The point is, it is His mercy that I have received the job. It is His mercy that I am getting salary also. So I can continue working. Yeah, but maybe if I'm trying to do three jobs at the same time, not able to sleep at night properly, not able to do my service, my sadhana properly, and I'm trying to achieve more and more and more in order to generate more income and more amenities for myself, then that is going on the material side. So there has to be a balance between completely giving up activity and going to the extreme end of performing many activities for the sake of sense gratification. The right balance is do what you are eligible, and whatever is minimum required for keeping the body and soul together, not giving too much of inclination to, or not having too much of inclination towards the bodily satisfaction, so as to generate more and more time to yourself for performing your sadhana, and that way a proper balance can be maintained. So that way we are not depending upon our strength, our intelligence in order to perform our activities. We are dependent on the Lord as well, because the Lord wants us to have the job, He will give the job. The Lord wants us to leave, He will make sure we quit or we lose the job, whatever. But the point is, if kind of a negative things happen, we should not react in a manner which actually resists the plan of the Lord, and we need not be over on the positive side also, because the Lord being there, the Lord still wants us to work, so we have to strike a balance between both of them. That is basically a dependency at a theoretical and even practical level as well. So now coming to the point wherein the objective of life, we have already always discussed about it. Yeah. So those who try to become independent, Prabhupada has mentioned that they are called as anath. So anath, we know it is actually a negative term, right? Somebody who is orphan, somebody who does not have parents, and such people are taken care of some, dharamshala and homes for these orphan kind of children. So the, anath is a negative term. The same thing when we apply that in this context, we understand that anath is basically those who are trying to become independent of the Lord, whereas sanath is one who is dependent on the Lord and who has somebody to protect them. So it is better to be sanath in material terms as well as in spiritual terms. So in spiritual terms, we depend on the Lord. In material terms, one depends on the parents. Now, do you remember which verse is this where the Mahatma definition is given? I think Rakesh Prabhu, you may know. We did this in 9th chapter, if you remember. Bhagavad Gita.
Mahatma as in, I didn't follow.
So we are here, Krishna is saying, right? So a person who understands that Vasudev is all in all, and that is the best way of leading one's life, to surrender to him completely. So this is verse number 19th, 7th chapter, Bahunam Janma Namante. Okay. But he's saying that is a sign of Mahatma. All the Pandav family members were Mahatmas. Maharaj Yudhishthir was Mahatma, the head and all that, right? So there is a quality of a Mahatma. Anybody remembers? Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakrutim Ashritah. This is 9.13. And why it is important to know? So we understand that they also take shelter. Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakrutim Ashritah. Ashritah is one who takes shelter. And shelter of whom? Daivim Prakrutim, the transcendental nature. And what does such people do? Bhajantyananya manaso nyatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Partha, those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protection of divine nature. Yeah. So this is the divine nature. So Krishna is also saying, surrender unto me. So you will come under my protection. So here Krishna is saying they are under the protection of divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service. Bhajantananya manaso. Because they know me as the supreme personality of Godhead. They accept Krishna as the all in all, everything, original and inexhaustible. So, quality or characteristic of Mahatma is somebody who believes in Krishna completely, who has totally surrendered unto Krishna completely, and they are under the protection of Krishna. Now we can understand and look at the people who have received the kind of a title as Mahatma in our country. Do they fall under this category? And then we can analyze whether they deserve to be called Mahatma. Now we'll move on, because let's try to finish Kunti Stuti today. So these are the points you have already covered previously. So verse number 38. के वयं नाम रूपाभ्याम यदुभिः सह पांडवाः भवतो दर्शनम यर्हि ऋषिकाणामिवेशितुः. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Who's reading? Rakesh Prabhu, you want to read?
सर आई कांट रीड हो, मैं मोबाइल पे देखता हूँ ना, मुझे नहीं
हाँ,
होता है.
अच्छा ठीक है.
I will do, Prabhu.
Yeah, okay.
As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once. Kunti Devi is quite aware that the existence of the Pandavas is due to Shri Krishna only. The Pandavas are undoubtedly well established in name and fame and are guided by the great king Yudhishthira, who is morally personified, and the Yadus, who are undoubtedly great allies. But without the guidance of the Lord Krishna, all of them are non-entities, as much as the senses of the body are useless without the guidance of the consciousness. No one should be proud of his prestige, power, and fame without being guided by the favor of the Supreme Lord. The living beings are always dependent, and the ultimate dependable object is the Lord Himself. We may therefore invent by our advancement of material knowledge all sorts of counteracting material resources, but without being guided by the Lord, all such inventions end in the fiasco, however strong and stout the reactionary elements may be.
Such a strong purport. Huh? Excellent. It is beautiful. So now look at the analogies that Kunti Maharani is giving. Yeah? So she is saying that the the moment the soul disappears, basically moves into another body, the body itself is finished, and along with that body, the name and fame of the body also finishes. So similarly, she is saying that if you do not look upon us, meaning if you give up your protection to us, then it is like our body itself getting destroyed completely. Our name, fame, activities, the whole Pandav dynasty and the Yadu dynasty will end at once. So she is saying that our existence, our name, fame, whatever it is, our activities, everything is dependent on you. If you do not show mercy on us, if you are not with us, if you do not give your protection to us, we are absolutely nothing. And this is how a devotee should have the right attitude. We will take one small example here. After Krishna departed, okay, so prior to that, when the war was won, okay, Arjun still had some pride in him. He was feeling that yes, I defeated so many Kaurava fighters. Bhima was also thinking similarly, and because of me, we have won the war. So, what for that moment he forgot is anything and everything that he won was because of the guidance provided by Krishna and the arrangements by Krishna. So, he did feel some pride there because of his ability. So one day, when Krishna departed this planet, Krishna told Arjun to carry all his 16,100 wives because the 8 wives left along with Krishna. The 16,100 wives, he said, along with their children, you should move them from one village to another. And this was the instruction given by Krishna to Arjun. Arjun did that. During on the way, there was a certain community, the Bhilla or some Adivasi community was there. They attacked Arjun, and they were not having bows and arrows and other weapons. They were only having sticks in their hand. Whereas Arjun, the famous Gandhivdhari, he was carrying all his bows and arrows. But Arjun was not able to defeat them. Arjun could not protect the wives of Krishna. And the Adivasis were able to snatch away these wives from Arjun. Then it is further mentioned in again Bhagavatam itself that Krishna himself had come in the form of these Adivasis to ensure that Arjun's pride is completely destroyed. So there was no way Arjun could have defeated these Adivasis because it was Krishna himself. And then Krishna himself took away all these wives. So the point to be understood here is without Krishna's presence, Arjun was a non-entity. That is what Prabhupada uses the word here. Without the guidance, without the support, without the protection of Krishna, not just Arjun, all Pandavas, Kunti Maharani, Draupadi, complete Yadu dynasty, Pandav dynasty, everybody was actually just a non-entity. And for the matter of fact, prior to descending on earth, Krishna had asked all the various demigods to take birth in different kingdoms, different dynasties. So they were also supposed to finish off their lila and go back with Krishna. So this was an opportunity that they were also taking as Krishna was wrapping up his lila. They were also taking to go back immediately after Krishna. So now the point is, every time we do something, we achieve something, there is a sense of pride that comes into us, right? Because of whether we call it as material advancement and all. It is basically a level of ignorance of the fact that this intelligence that we have received is also because of Krishna. Had the intelligence not been there, we would not be in a position to invent something, discover something, conclude something, and start using or start using the whatever our invention is. So we think that the electricity, the mobile phones and computers and this that is a great invention of human being. What we ignore is the intelligence received by that person who invented it also has come from Krishna himself. So had Krishna not wanted you to invent it, you would not have been able to do it. So these inventions of our material knowledge, the advancement, the so-called advancement, without being guided by the Lord, it is impossible to come up with any kind of advancement. And the Lord also supports your advancement because that is the way by which you will increase your pride, and that is the way you will be able to fall down as well and learn a lesson from it.
Sachin sir,
हाँ प्रभु जी.
see, we understand Bhagavad Gita through this Guru Parampara Shishya
हाँ,
system. But
yeah,
then Arjuna witnessed this personally and he was told by Krishna, he also saw his Vishwaroop. In
correct.
spite of this, how is it that Arjuna still had pride?
Yeah. So this, what happens is, a very important point, and thank you for bringing up this one. So there is one saying which Prabhupada generally used to say that a mother-in-law always teaches the daughter-in-law via the daughter. So, which means what? Sorry. When a newly married daughter-in-law comes to the house and a mother-in-law wants to teach her, there is a chance that direct teaching may make her revolt, that ये मेरे को पसंद नहीं है, मैं नहीं करूंगी, मेरे मम्मी ने मेरे को ये सिखाया नहीं है, sort of. So an indirect method of teaching is employed here. So the mother-in-law teaches the daughter while she ensures that the daughter-in-law is hearing, and that way the daughter-in-law starts getting the message and she gets adjusted to the circumstances. Similarly, when something is to be taught to people like us, the Lord uses the devotee, his own devotee, as a medium to teach us. Now, the uh, pride that Arjun still had was also an arrangement of Krishna, so that we understand that just by absorbing the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, it is not going to be sufficient to eradicate our pride. There has to be an application of that knowledge in the form of surrender, in the form of chanting, in the form of direct service to Krishna, which are the activities which help us purify ourselves from this ego. Because by just telling, by somebody telling us that you are the soul, you are not the body, is not sufficient for us to practically implement our actions at the level of the soul and remove the actions at the level of our body. Yeah, we have to start applying it in our daily life gradually, and gradually with one or the other incidents which come and keep on teaching us, we will come to know that these are things that we are not supposed to do, these are the things we are supposed to do. So, despite Arjun receiving this direct knowledge from Bhagavad Gita, okay, to teach us that implementation of this knowledge is more important than just the knowledge itself. This one thing, this one incident was actually created. This incident was also created with another purpose, that the strength of an individual is absolutely zero without Krishna being there, without Krishna being in the center of our life, without he supporting us. So Arjun getting this, coming to that stage of having this ego and pride is also an arrangement of Krishna. A similar arrangement was done by Vishnu to Narad Muni also. In one of the Puran, it is mentioned that uh, Narad Muni was given an assurance by Vishnu that Maya will never touch him, which means he will never come under the influence of Maya. That's a big promise. But one day, he went to Vishnu and he told him that I want to marry. And then Vishnu told him, no, not required to because of whatever reason. But he tells me, so I still want to marry. I want to see how Grihastha life is. And then certain incidents happen after that. I'll not go into detail into that. But the point is, at a certain point of time, okay, Narad Muni did come under the influence of Maya, and he generated some pride. He generated a situation wherein he thought that he is more beautiful than Vishnu also. And then after that incident was over, then Narad Muni realized the mistake, and he went and asked for forgiveness from Vishnu. And then he asked him, how did I get into this? He said, you were given a promise that you will not fall under Maya, but this is for everybody to learn from your own incident, so that, just because you have reached a certain stage and there is very low probability of you falling into Maya, that doesn't mean you are allowed to do anything and everything. So the point here that I'm trying to emphasize upon is the Lord gives us promises. Even in Bhagavad Gita also says that once somebody comes to my planet, he will never come back. But if purposefully, if we still want to develop a desire to enjoy the material nature, the Lord will throw us back in. So just because the protection has been given to us doesn't mean we can misuse the protection, misuse it. And this is a lesson that we learn from this Arjuna's example, that the Lord is there to protect us, but you cannot become proud about it. You cannot leave the virtues of devotional service. Sorry, like usual, my answer was very long. I'm sorry for that.
Prabhu, last time that Brahma Vimochan Leela, also that indirectly refers to that.
Yes, very valid point, Prabhu. Yeah, Brahma Vimohan Leela. Yeah. So Brahma is also a very good devotee of the Lord, but Brahma was put into that situation of illusion from a different perspective. So the Lord, uh, he thought Krishna is not the Lord, because he thought, how can somebody who is eating jhuta of other people can be Lord? And Lord ऐसा थोड़ी कपड़ा पहनता है, and ऐसा थोड़ी खाना खाता है, दोनों हाथ से खाना खा रहा है, दूसरे के मुंह से खाना खींच रहा है and खुद खा रहा है. Lord, he was under the impression of Narayan form, of meaning which is like a form where you look upon at as with awe and reverence. तो जो भगवान को जो भोग लगाते, कैसे सोने की थाली में 56 भोग लगाते, with clean hands, perfect preparation and all that. तो ऐसा भोग लगाने वाले, जो एक्सेप्ट करने वाले भगवान है, how can the same भगवान eat झूठा from somebody's plate, somebody's mouth and all that? So then basically he got bewildered in that. So it was a kind of a lesson to teach Brahma. So थोड़ा पर्सपेक्टिव उसमें डिफरेंट था. हरे कृष्णा. Shall we move on?
Yes.
नेयं शोभिष्यते तत्र यथेदानीं गदाधर त्वत्पदैरङ्किता भाति Swalakshana vilakshitaihi. Translation
O
and
Gadadhar Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and
therefore.
and therefore appears beautiful. But when you leave, it will no longer be so. There are certain particular marks on the feet of the Lord which distinguish the Lord from others. The marks of a flag, thunderbolt, and instrument to drive an elephant, umbrella, lotus, disc, etc., are on the bottom of the Lord's feet. These marks are impressed upon the soft dust of the land where the Lord trans- traverses. The land of Hastinapur was thirst marked, while Lord Sri Krishna was there with the Pandavas, and the kingdom of the Pandavas thus flourished by such auspicious signs. Kunti Devi pointed out that these distinguished features are and was afraid of ill luck in the absence of the Lord.
Jai. So there are uh, 8 marks on the left foot of the Lord, and there are 9 marks on the right foot of the Lord. So totally 17 marks are there, and similar marks are there on the feet of of Lord Ram also. Similar marks, meaning not exactly same. Some could be plus or minus here and there, but they are there on the feet of Srimati Radharani also. And this was actually spoken in Ramayana also, that when Lord Ram, Sita Mata and Lakshman, they started their journey for Vanvas. So in the initial phase, before they could cross Ayodhya, they were on a chariot, and then the chariot stopped at a place and then that place was called as Shringwerpur, where they came across the tribal king Guha. You may have heard this before. So Guha was the king of those tribes over there, and Guha, after they spent that night in Shringwerpur, then Guha arranged one boat for Lord Ram, Sita Mata, and Lakshman to cross Ganga. That driver of the boat was named as Kevat. There is a beautiful incident over there. If you happen to read Ramayana, please read. It's absolutely beautiful. After Kevat dropped them on the other side of Ganga, that is when their journey on feet started. And every time they walked, it was in a kind of a sequence. Lord Ram used to be first, then Sita Mata, and then Lakshman. And they were so careful that Sita Mata did not step on the footmark of Lord Ram. She ensured that it falls to the left of her foot falls to the left of Lord Ram. And Lakshman ensured that he does not step on the same footmark of Sita Mata. He put his footmark on the left of Sita Mata. And then they went this one. And it is mentioned in the Ramayana that the footmarks were very beautiful. Something which should be preserved, sort of. So the Lord carries these marks on his feet, which all the signs which are completely auspicious. As it is mentioned here, the flag is there, lotus is there, disc is there, and there umbrella is also there, and so many things are there. So all these are there as the marks on the feet of the Lord. And when people come across, statements that I am God, so this is one technique by which we can ask them to show their feet, the bottom of the feet. If the soles contain these marks, maybe then we can accept it. Yeah, people like Shirdi Sai Baba and all foolish people, gullible people, they accept them as God, but they do not have the proper knowledge of Shastra to identify how God looks like. What are the characteristics of God? Yeah? So only when these characteristics can be understood, then people will know that okay, God is not an ordinary human being. Just because somebody is able to generate some vibhuti or some small quantity of gold from their hand doesn't make somebody as God. We've also many you've seen, right, wherein people when they uh, people become atheists also, right? So the complete fortune of a living entity is dependent upon the Lord. This is a technical aspect. And practically, we can see that when you have a good puja going on in the house, the complete atmosphere within the house is auspicious, is beautiful. The chanting of the mantras, everything is going on so beautiful. But once that finishes, or that environment, if you compare to another environment, you will immediately feel the sign, the negative energy. And I'm not sure whether you go to such parties or not, but whenever you go to a party where they serve liquor and meat and all, this is immediately noticeable. So many of our devotees, many even I used to eat non-veg before, and I could clearly feel the difference. My mother, yes, she was a good instrument for this to communicate this one. So she used to go to my brother's house when he used to eat non-veg, and she used to come to our house also. And every time she used to tell me that, Sachin, after coming to your house, the positive energy, the vibes, the auspiciousness is easily felt. Whereas she never used to feel the same at my brother's house. So wherever the Lord is present, the environment is completely different. And wherever the Lord is absent or negative things happen, the environment is completely different. And that is precisely what Mata is saying here. Jai. Text 40. Ime janapadaha svruddhaha swapak swapak swap swapakau sorry सुपक्वौष धी विरुधः वनाद्रीना द्यूनवन्तो खेद्यन्ते तव वीक्षितैः. Translation.
All these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and grains are in abundance. The trees are full of fruits, the rivers are flowing, the hills are full of minerals, and the oceans are full of wealth. All this is all, and this is all due to your glancing over them.
Jai.
Human prosperity flourishes by natural gifts and not by gigantic industrial enterprises. The gigantic industrial enterprises are products of godless civilization, and they cause the destruction of the noble aims of the human life. The more we go on increasing such troublesome industries to squeeze out the vital energy of the human being, the more there will be unrest and dissatisfaction of the people in general. Although if you only can live lavishly by exploitation. The natural gifts such as grains and vegetables, fruits, rivers, and the hills of jewels and minerals, and the seas full of pearls are supplied by the order of the Supreme, and as He desires, material desire, nature produces them in abundance or restricts them at times. The natural law is that the human being may take advantage of these godly gifts by nature and satisfactorily flourish on them without being captivated by the exploitive motive of lording it over material nature. The more we attempt to exploit material nature according to our whims of enjoyment, the more we shall become entrapped by the reaction of such exploitative attempts. If we are if we have sufficient grains, foods, fruits, vegetables, and herbs, then what is the necessity of running a slaughterhouse and killing poor animals? A man need not kill an animal if he has sufficient grains and vegetables to eat. The flow of river waters, the flow of river waters fertilizes the fields, and there is more than what we need. Minerals are produced on the hills and the jewels in the ocean. If the human civilization has sufficient grains, minerals, jewels, water, milk, etc., then why should it hang current after terrible industrial enterprises at the cost of the labor of some unfortunate men? But all these natural gifts are dependent on the mercy of the Lord. What we need, what we need, therefore, is to be obedient to the laws of the Lord and achieve the perfection of human life by devotional service. The indication of Kunti Devi are just to the point. She desires that God's mercy be bestowed upon them so that natural prosperity be maintained by His grace.
Jay. So we've seen right in Mahabharata also that Krishna stopped the worship of Indra and how Indra was angry. So it was at least understandable that these rains and similar natural factors, they are administered by some demigod. And Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, right, that the powers are given by him to those demigods in order to administer these to them, to us. Now, if the if the will of Krishna is such that there should be abundant rain or no rain or excessive rain in certain area, certain place, then it will happen anyway. It all depends on how uh, the people are actually performing their duties and their karma and yajna, and based on that, the rain happens, or for that matter, the natural supporting factors or disturbances, however we look at it, they happen because of that. The bigger point to be understood here is from a vegetarianism perspective, the a human being needs certain ingredients for him to live properly, right? Grains, fruits, vegetables, herbs, milk, water, and all that. So if these are available, there is no need for us to kill the poor animals, slaughter them just for our satisfaction of our taste buds. So that is precisely, and from another perspective, if you look at it, if these are not there, then the Shastra itself allows one to eat animals. Yeah? But there are conditions associated with it. Now the point is, people say that in Arab world, prior to the advent of Islam, there was not much of vegetables could not be grown here. So that's why they had to eat animals, which makes complete sense as well. Yeah, but the point is, now that it is available, and now that it is available not just in Arab world but the whole world, then you don't need all this now. But what happens is people get used to it, then people consider that to be, a normal, new normal, and then they continue eating it. Then it becomes like, अगर मेरे को मिल रहा है तो मैं क्यों नहीं खाऊं, sort of. So the point is, it was a provisional arrangement. That fact is actually ignored, and then that becomes eating non-vegetarian food becomes a kind of a normal there. The point to highlight all of this is uh, even because of this influence of non-vegetarian food, many Hindus, and I have seen even quite a few of my friends who are Brahmins themselves, meaning it feels actually sad to see that, but even Brahmins themselves are into eating non-vegetarian food. And then we can understand the level of degradation that we have reached to. The key point to be understood from this verse is the material prosperity is also dependent upon the will of the Lord. And material prosperity is impossible without the natural factors such as fire, water, air, ether, rain, then sunlight, and all these. And all these are controlled and administered directly or indirectly by the Lord. So without our proper duties and yajna and everything, it is impossible to achieve this one. So we can see that there is a degradation already happening, and at a certain point of time, which is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, the 12th canto, the prophecy is such that all of this will come to a stop at a certain point of time, and people will literally crave for some food. People will not have water, rain will stop, there will be excessive heat, which will disturb the people a lot. Just for example, let's go to this one. I think one day we did read, right, those 2, 3 chapters. Uh, Harassed by famine and excessive taxes, people will resort to eating leaves, roots, flesh, wild honey, fruits, flower seeds. Struck by drought, they will be completely ruined. The citizens will suffer greatly from cold, wind, heat, rain, snow. They will be further tormented by quarrels, hunger, thirst, disease, severe anxiety. So this is what is going to happen in Kali Yuga at a certain point of time. And we are just heading in that direction because karma is stopping, bad karma is just taking over completely. Yajna is stopping, people are not doing any sacrifice, any chanting, and it will diminish at a certain point of time. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has mentioned from the time of his departure for another 10,000 years, it is a golden period of Kali Yuga. Yeah, just 10,000 years. So at this point of time, we have crossed somewhere around 5,500 years in Kali Yuga, and another 4,27,000 years are to pass. And Mahaprabhu has said that another 9,500, because 500 have already been elapsed after Mahaprabhu left this world. So another 9,500 years, we will see sufficient food, grains, rain, sunlight, and everything. But over after that, it will start degrading. And one another thing which should cite you sufficiently. Where is it? Lecha. Uh, okay, I'm not able to see that verse here. But 99.5% of the population will be Mleccha and Yavana. And you know what I'm referring to. So if not us, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 generations later, our descendants will change their religion, and they will either become Muslims or Christians or somebody. So this is an inevitable fact which we are seeing a good development happening even now also. So that is why Mahaprabhu also said that this is a golden period. Do your bhakti as much possible now itself and come out of this nonsense cycle of birth and death, so that you don't get stuck into the other part of Kali Yuga. Hare Krishna. Let's look at verse number 41. We'll try to do until 43 today. अथ विश्वेश विश्वात्मन् विश्वमूर्ते स्वकेषु मे स्नेह पाशम इमं चिन्धि दूढ़ं पांडुषु वृष्णिषु. This is a big purport.
O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever my ties of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. A pure devotee of the Lord is ashamed to ask anything in self-interest from the Lord, but the householders are sometimes obliged to ask favors from the Lord, being bound by the tie of the family affection. Shrimati Kunti Devi was conscious of this fact, and therefore she prayed to the Lord to cut off the affectionate tie from her own kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. The Pandavas are her own sons, and the Vrishnis are the members of her parental family. Krishna was equally related to both the families. Both the families required the Lord's help because both were dependent devotees of the Lord. Srimati Kunti Devi wished Sri Krishna to remain with her sons, the Pandavas, but by his doing so, her parental house would be bereft of the benefit. All these particulars troubles troubled the mind of Kunti, and therefore she desired to cut off the affectionate tie. A pure devotee cuts off the limited ties of affection for his family and widens his activities of devotional service for all forgotten souls. The typical example is the band of six Goswamis who followed the path of Lord Chaitanya. All of them belong to the most enlightened and cultured rich families of the higher castes. But for the benefit of the mass of population, they left their comfortable homes and became menti mendicants. To cut off all family affection means to broaden the fields of activities. Without doing this, no one can be qualified as a Brahman, a king, a public leader, or a devotee of the Lord. The personality of the Godhead as an ideal king showed this by example. Sri Ramachandra cut off the tie of affection of his beloved wife to manifest the qualities of an ideal king. Such personalities of a Brahman, a devotee, a king, or a public leader must be very broad minded in discharging their respective duties. Srimati Kunti Devi was conscious of this fact, and being weak, she prayed to be free from such bondage of family affection. The Lord is addressed as the Lord of the universe or the Lord of the universal mind, indicating his all powerful ability to cut the hard knot of family affection. Therefore, it is sometimes experienced that the Lord, out of his special affinity towards a weak devotee, breaks the family affection by force of circumstances arranged by his all powerful energy. By doing so, he causes the devotee to become completely dependent on him and thus clears the path for his going back to the Godhead.
Jai. Anybody remembers an example for this one? Therefore, it is sometimes experienced as a Lord out of his special affinity towards a weak devotee breaks the family affection.
We learned from the Narda's background. So
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect. So Narad Muni basically was not a weak devotee as such, but Narad Muni's progress on spiritual life was uh, hindered only by one factor, that is the presence of his mother. So the Lord basically took away his mother also in the form of a snake bite, and then the Narad Muni was completely independent. After doing Kriya Karma for his wife, for his mother, he completely set out of the house in search of the Lord. And in one of the chapters, I think 89th chapter of 10th canto in Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna mentions this point, but in a much stronger manner. So that manner is such that for those devotees who are unable to take the next step forward, Krishna arranges them in such a manner that he shows them the special mercy by taking away some of the material of those factors which have developed a strong attachment for those devotees. So the Lord wants us to progress in our spiritual life, and factors which promote this one are increased, and factors which hinder this walk on the spiritual life, the Lord ensures that they are taken away. So sometimes we see that people have a lot of ego, and devotees basically, they are walking on this path, but they have a lot of ego. And what the Lord does is, because ego is a negative factor, can hinder the progress. So purposely, the Lord creates such incidents that that person feels regularly insulted by very many people. And over a period of time, his ego is hurt and bruised to an extent that he realizes that the ego was the cause of his insults and those incidents. And that is how he is able to gradually give up the ego also. So anything and everything that stops us from progressing spiritually, the Lord will create situations by which those factors are negated gradually, or the positive factors are enhanced. And one of the factors which stops a householder to approach the Lord selflessly is the affection of the family. So me, my wife, my children, my relatives, my friends, my this, my that are the factors which which are the hindering factors for a householder. And Kunti Maharani very well understands this one. So what she is saying, that enough of this family matters. If I am not able to do it by myself, I am requesting you to cut off my ties with my family, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis, so that I will become completely independent and I will be able to devote 100% myself to yourself. And we have this Shad Goswami. Hmm? There is a big book as well on them. Shad Goswami, that is Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Jiva Goswami, and Gopal Bhatta Goswami. These six Goswamis, they were very well doing very well in material life, but they gave up all of this and came to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they surrendered himself unto him. And after that, they did lot of service with respect to enhancing the spiritual life for everyone else in terms of writing scriptures, translating, and all that. And uh, the example here given is that they would not have been able to do any of these had they had the material affections and ties with the family. So as far as the family is supportive of an individual in progressing spiritual life, it's a perfect family. As far as the family is holding one back and not able to let the person progress, then it is time to think about such a situation. So that's why generally in ISKCON, it is said that a person uh, along with his wife should take the initiation together. The Diksha should be taken together so that the wife and the husband can walk on the spiritual life together, supporting each other, and be able to hold the hand wherever required, give support, and enable each other to walk and reach the destination. If a person, if let's say the husband or the wife alone is walking or running on this path of spiritual life, neglecting the other person, then there is a probability that the other person may become a hindrance, and may even stop the progress of that person, or the person may have to give up the second person. So to avoid the situation, it is better to walk together. Hare Krishna. Now I'll proceed. Just two more verses to be completed. I'll share one YouTube video on this one. There is one devotee named as Karnamrita Dasi, and she has spoken the complete Kunti Stuti in a very beautiful tone, beautiful tune, good music, and very nice to hear. So in that verse, she does speak of this verse also. त्वयि मे अनन्य विषया मतिर मधुपते सकृत रतिम उदवतः अद्धा गंगे वौघम उदन्वती.
O, O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else.
Jai.
Per- Perfection of pure devotional service is attained when all attention is diverted towards the transcendental loving service of the Lord. To cut off the tie of all the other affections does not mean complete negation of the finer elements, like affection for someone else. This is not possible. A living being, whosoever he may be, what must have this feeling of affection for others because this is a symptom of life. The symptoms of life, such as desire, anger, anchorings, feelings of attraction, etc., cannot be annihilated. Only the objective has to be changed. Desire cannot be negated, but in devotional service, the desire is changed only for the servant of the Lord in place of desire for sense gratification. The so called affection for family, society, country, etc., consists of different phases of sense gratification. When this desire is changed for the satisfaction of the Lord, it is called devotional service. In Bhagavad Gita, we can see the Arjun desired not to fight with the brothers and relations, just to satisfy his personal desires. But when he heard the message of the Lord, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he changed his decision and served the Lord. And for doing so, he became a famous devotee of the Lord, for it is declared in all the scriptures that Arjuna attained spiritual perfection by devotional service to the Lord or in friendship. The fighting was there, the friendship was there, Arjuna was there, and Krishna was there, but Arjuna became a different person by devotional service. Therefore, the prayers of Kunti also indicate the same categorical changes in activities. Shrimati Kunti wanted to serve the Lord without diversion, and that was her prayer. This unalloyed devotion in the ultimate goal of life is the ultimate goal of life. Our attention is usually diverted to the service of something which is non godly or not in the program of the Lord. When the program is changed into the service of the Lord, then is to say when the senses are purified in relation with the service of the Lord, it is called pure unalloyed devotional service. Srimati Kunti Devi wanted the perfection and prayed for it from the Lord. Her affection for the Pandavas and the Vrishnis is not out of the range of devotional service because the service of the Lord and the service of the devotees are identical. Sometimes service to the devotee is more valuable than service to the Lord. But here the affection of Kunti Devi for the Pandavas and the Vrishnis are due to the family relation. This tie of affection in terms of material relation is the relation of Maya because the relations of the body or the mind are due to the influence of the external energy. Relation of the soul established in relation to the Supreme Soul are factual relations. When Kunti Devi wanted to cut off the family relation, she wanted to cut off the relation of the skin. The skin relation is the cause of the material bondage, but the relation of the soul is the cause of the freedom. This relation of the soul to the soul can be established by the medium of the relation with the supersoul. Seeing in the darkness is not seeing, but seeing by the light of the sun means to see the sun and everything else which was unseen in the darkness. This is the way of devotion service.
Jai. So, purport by Prabhupada, it is like it gives so many different perspectives of a single verse. Hey, imagine trying to read and understand Bhagavatam just by the translation and not reading the purport. It is impossible. We will miss such a great explanation. So now this is very much self-explanatory. However, just to put a few points here. So every time the Lord wants us to think about Him without any adulteration. So as we hear this saying, right, trying to step on multiple stones at the same time, the obvious outcome of this is one will fall down. So now the Lord is saying that either you can love me or you can love Maya. You cannot love both of us at the same time. So he is saying, I have told you, instructions I've given you, loving Maya, what is the result, and loving me, what is the result. Despite that, if you are unable to give up your love for Maya, You may have say 10, 20, 40, 50, 70% love for me, but your 5, 10, 20, 30% of love for Maya has to be eradicated. Only when a person loves 100% Krishna, then only he can be considered as a pure devotee. So Krishna is saying, I want you to reach that stage. You meaning everybody to reach that stage of 100% pure devotional service to me, which means love for Maya has to be eradicated, has to be removed. And what are the factors, what are the symptoms by which one can understand love for Maya? That is how deep the bonding of that person is with respect to the family ties, his bank balance, and his wealth, and properties, and cars, and job, and all that, right? So the more a person is inclined towards all of these, the lesser he will be inclined towards Krishna, because he can think of either this or that at any point of time. He cannot think of both. कि कृष्णा भी चाहिए हाथ में और मजा भी कर लेना है, that is not possible. Krishna does not accept it, he does not allow it. So now that is the reason why Kunti Maharani in the previous verse said, you sever my ties with the affection with my family. I want to focus completely on you. And here also she extends that same point here, that I want my attraction only towards you, and whatever stops that should be severed, which is what she has mentioned, because the rivers constantly flow into the sea. There is, for not even a moment, there is a hindrance over there. So similarly, she is saying that my attraction should also be constantly flowing towards you, and for not even a moment it should flow to anyone else. And that will only be possible if either you sever my ties, or from whatever reasons, if I am able to give up the affection for my family. Yeah. So this is a very high level thought and high level practical implementation of the principles for people like you and me at this point of time, when we are householders and we have householder duties. This may not be possible. If somebody asks you and says, "अरे भाई इधर लिखा है भागवतम में कि तुम घर छोड़ के चले जाओ," so that will not happen. Yeah, you have your own duties towards your family until your children become self-sustaining, are able to take care of themselves. It is the duty of a parent to take care of them. Recently, during our Ramayan tour, we had one sannyasi devotee accompany us throughout the tour. And one important point he told me was with respect to the duty of parents towards their children. He said that the moment a child is married, the duty of the parents towards the child is completed. So he said that your objective should be to raise the children, to give them proper education, and marry them. After their marriage, technically, from the perspective of Shastras, your obligation towards your child is completed. You do not have any obligation towards your child at all. And this is the time, he said, that this is the time one should look at starting to, retire from householder life. Yeah, he may continue to live with the wife if the wife is unable to live without the husband, or husband is unable to live without the wife. But at least he should start reducing the affection and bond towards the children, at least, and gradually focus more and more on the Lord. That is the way of Vanaprasthashram. So that's what he said. So these are possible when we gradually start implementing from at least this stage of our life. So by the time we reach that stage of 5 or 10 years later, when the children are married, it will not be so very difficult. But I read one lecture in that this person had said that people who are unable to do it, what the Lord does after the marriage, the Lord gives a toy in the hands of the parents, meaning not our children but us. And the toy is named as grandson or granddaughter. And because of that, it becomes even more difficult to leave the grandson and granddaughter. So then it is on an ideal basis, it is good that moment the children are married, before they have their own children, it is better to reduce the bonding over there. Very difficult to practice, I understand, but it is not impossible. And in the interest of our spiritual life, we can think on those lines also. I think
Exactly, Lord of Madhu means that the killer of Madhu enemy.
yes,
That
yeah. The Madhu demon.
yeah.
I think that's all here in this one. Okay, so shall we just now do one verse, then it will complete Kunti Stuti, this section here, and we can start with the next one next week. Shri Krishna Krishna Sakha Vrishnu Vrishni Rishabhavani Dhrub Rajanya Vamshadhanan Napa Virya Govinda Godvija Surarpi Hara Vara Varatara Yogeshwara Khila Guru Bhagavan Namaste. Sorry, I was not able to pronounce it perfectly.
O Krishna, O
I'll
friend
read
of Arjuna, O chief amongst the descendants of Vrishni, you are the destroyer of those political parties which are disturbing elements on this earth. Your prowess never deteriorates. You are the proprietor of the transcendental abode, and you descend to relieve the distress of the cows, the Brahmins, and the devotees. You possess all mystic powers. You are the perceptor of the entire universe. You are the Almighty God, and I offer you my respectful obeisance. The summary of the Lord Krishna, a summary of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna is made herein by Kunti Devi. The Almighty Lord has his eternal transcendental abode, where he is engaged in keeping Surbi cows. He is severed by hundreds and thousands. He is served by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. He descends to the material world to reclaim his devotees and to annihilate the disturbing elements in groups of political parties and kings who are supposed to be in charge of the administrative work. He creates, maintains, and annihilates by his unlimited energies, and still he is always full with prowess and does not deteriorate in potency. The cows, the Brahmins, and the devotees of the Lord are all objects of his special attention because they are very important factors for the general welfare of the living being.
Jai. So this way we finish off Kunti Stuti, which is a section in this chapter of 25 verses, starting from verse 18, if I'm not wrong. And this is basically the pinnacle of the verses, yeah, which describes Lord Shri Krishna. Now, what is not there in this verse? Hardly anything you will find. Yeah, he is the controller of the spiritual world, transcendental abode. Yeah, he is the annihilator of the disturbing elements. He is the protector of the good elements. Yeah, he comes down. He does not take birth like you and me. He comes down from his transcendental abode to earthly planet for two, three purposes: to relieve the distresses of the cows, brahmanas, and to play around with the devotees. He is able to ensure that the devotees are protected and they continue on their path towards the spiritual life by creating an environment for them which is free from disturbances. So anything and everything that one can expect from God is mentioned in this particular verse. And finally, she's Bhagavan Namaste. So she is praying, she is offering her obeisances, Namaskar, to the Lord. Now, if you remember in the beginning of Kunti Stuti, it was mentioned that because Kunti was the paternal aunt of Sri Krishna, that's why Kunti started describing the body of the Lord from his navel, not from his feet. So that it's not that she did not want to describe, it is that because she did not want to embarrass him by looking towards his feet or describing the feet, because That is generally done for elders. Kunti Maharani was one generation elder to Krishna. That's why she did not do that to Krishna in order not to embarrass him. But now she has reached that stage wherein saying that irrespective of what is my relation with you, you are the Supreme Lord and I am paying you obeisances here. Please accept it. So this whole theory, the philosophy in Kunti Stuti, Prabhupada has written one special book on this teachings of Queen Kunti. And it's available, I think, here also in the library. It is available. So please read if possible. So teachings of Queen Kunti, this book is here. So try to read this. Hare Krishna. So we will start from verse number 44 next week. I think this one has 50 odd verses, 54 or something like that, 52. So maybe we will try to cover up all these verses next week because most of them are small verses. Hare Krishna. Any question around this or we can wrap up? Okay, fine. No question. So we can close them. Hare Krishna. See you
Hare
next.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.